You are an Islamophobe who hates Islam.
No, I don't.
You basically think all Muslims are to blame. We've seen you on video saying it. And what you're doing now is deliberately inflammatory. It is deliberately poison.
I really don't. I don't know why we have given in to Islamists and terrorists. I don't know why we've done it.
We have sacred places too. We have sacred places too. One of them is the cenotaph. One is Remembrance Day. One is when we remember the fallen of 2 world wars. Those are our sacred places. And you think you can trample on them? You think you can prod us and insult us by marching on those days with your hate and your anti-Semitism and your anti-British sentiment? No.
Douglas Murray and Tommy Robinson are back, this time with a plan that's shaking the very foundations of British society. These two polarizing figures propose an emergency deportation of Muslims from London. You heard that right. Murray, a fierce defender of British sovereignty, and Robinson, the self-proclaimed voice of the working class, are turning up the heat like never before. But is this a bold move to save the UK, or a dangerous leap into division and chaos?
Would you have a ban, like Donald Trump suggested in America, would you have a ban on Muslims entering the country, new Muslims trying to have a home in this country?
I believe we need to protect the British public right now.
So what's the answer to the question?
British Muslims?
Yeah, we need. Yeah, the British public. I didn't say British non-Muslim public. I said the British public. We've had.
Would you
ban? We've had
Tommy,
3
you're a
terror
straight
attacks.
talker.
Children are being killed.
Yes, we all know what's been happening.
Yes, I would. I would stop.
You would ban all Muslims.
I would temporarily halt Muslim immigration to this country until we get a grip of the problem. I differentiate Muslims from Islam.
Right.
Okay?
But what you don't do.
Differentiate Muslims.
Muslims are people. Islam is an idea.
Yeah.
Islam's an idea. A bad idea.
And
Islam is a faith.
No, it's an idea.
It's a faith.
It's an idea that you can change your mind.
No, it's a faith. Like Christianity.
Like Scientology.
It's like all faiths.
Like
it's a religion, it's a faith.
Like Scientology.
So, Tommy,
it's an ideology.
If you're saying that the problem is with Islam, are you accepting that you're Islamophobic?
Because there are 100 verses in this...
Yes or no? Okay. Are you Islamophobic?
There's no such word as Islamophobia. Phobia is an irrational fear. It's not irrational to fear these things. Now, if I hold this book up and say, there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book, is a violent and cursed book. That's wrong. Can I tell you who said that? Can I tell you who said that? Sir William Gladstone said that.
You wouldn't do that with...
Sir William Gladstone
would you do that with the Bible? Show some respect.
Show some respect.
Show some respect.
Have you read this book?
For people.
Have you read this book?
There are over a billion people.
There are 100 verses in this book that incite violence and murder against us.
Show some damn respect for people's religious beliefs, right?
I should show some respect for a book that incites murder against me.
Put it down.
And calls me an animal. No, I won't put it down. Sir William Gladstone held this book above his head in Parliament, and he said there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. It's a violent and cursed book. Was Sir William Gladstone, who we have statues across our capital C, was he a bigot or an Islamophobe?
Now,
Winston Churchill.
You're sounding like a complete lunatic.
No, I'm quoting previous some of the best leaders in this country.
You're sounding like a bigoted lunatic.
No, I'm not.
Somebody that basically, you are an Islamophobe who hates Islam.
No, I don't.
You basically think all Muslims are to blame. We've seen you on video saying it. And what you're doing now is deliberately inflammatory. It is deliberately poisonous.
How is this inflammatory?
And you are having the complete opposite effect to the one that you say you have. You are stirring up hatred. You are abusing people's religion. You're abusing their faith. And you're being a complete disgrace.
What do you know about the Prophet Muhammad? We've established nothing. You are ignorant.
I know that you're deliberately insulting.
What do you know about the Prophet? How am I insulting people?
Who have deeply held religious beliefs.
And
you flouncing the Quran around in your hand in that disgraceful manner is outrageous.
This book is the reason we're in such a mess. No. That's a reality.
No, we're in this mess because people take Islam, they are terrorists, and they abuse the nature of Islam and the wording of Islam, and they perpetrate evil, and it is completely wrong. And for you to try and claim that the vast majority of Muslims were decent, law-abiding people, to try and abuse and mock their faith and their holy book is an outrage.
The call for the emergency deportation of Muslims from London, fueled by Tommy Robinson's anti-Muslim rhetoric, represents a dangerous oversimplification of a complex issue. His blanket condemnation of Islam and its followers not only fails to address the real challenges of extremism and integration, but also exacerbates division and hatred within society. Blaming an entire religion for the actions of a few extremists is unjust and counterproductive, alienating millions of law-abiding Muslims who positively contribute to our communities. Instead of fostering meaningful dialogue around national security, Robinson's inflammatory stance stirs up the very tensions he claims to oppose, leading us further away from the solutions we truly need.
A strange timeline, as you describe it. You also, just a moment ago, described yourself as a liberal, a progressive, a Black Lives Matter supporter at one point. So how does someone with all of those credentials end up meeting and working with Tommy Robinson? What was he like when you first met him?
Not what I thought he would be, honestly. He had black friends. He was very chatty to, there'll be Muslims coming up talking to him in the street. He would chat to them. It was mainly white liberals that would shout at him, and it was mainly people with brown skin that would engage with him, and he would engage with them in quite a respectful way. And it was something that I suppose I didn't expect from him. And then the way that he, I read his book, and he moved to the States, and then I watched the Oxford Speech Union thing that he did. And then there was a lot of videos online that were kind of Tommy Robinson owns journalists. I don't know if you remember those kind of things, but they gave the impression of a kind of David and Goliath character that's been lied about, that's secretly been trying to, help Britain, but the establishment wants to silence him and all this kind of thing. And, there's some truth to that, but some of it is a myth. And I think that myth is very prevalent among his supporters today. I think there's a reason why people really do see him as some kind of, like a hero, unfortunately.
A former collaborator's account of Tommy Robinson showing respect towards Muslims and people of color might paint a picture of civility, but it fails to negate the broader damage caused by his anti-Muslim rhetoric. While he may exhibit brief moments of politeness, his public stance perpetuates Islamophobia and deepens social division, overshadowing any positive personal interactions he might have. The real issue lies in the dangerous narrative he promotes, which unfairly targets an entire community and undermines genuine efforts toward understanding and unity. In advocating for the emergency deportation of Muslims from London, Robinson's rhetoric only serves to escalate tensions and hinder progress in fostering a more inclusive society.
Well, that's one of the things, Julia, that I take away from this. This is why I say I don't recognize our country anymore. I really don't. I don't know why we have given in to Islamists and terrorists. I don't know why we've done it. Why is it that Saturday after Saturday, people parade through the streets of London calling for jihad, praising Hamas, praising terrorists, and clambering over and defiling our sacred war monuments? Why do they get to do that every Saturday, but I can't speak in the theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue to a packed theatre mainly of Jews? Why is it that if you call for violence against Jews day after day on the streets of London, that's A-OK with the Metropolitan Police? But if Jews want to congregate in central London, apparently it's not okay, and we'll have to retreat to another venue. I'm not a victim here, and I'm not claiming any victimhood. I don't believe in that. I don't care. I'm not going to shut up. I'll continue speaking. This is my country. London is my city, and I expect to be able to do what I want in my city. But why is it that we have Hamas supporters and all these others who defile our monuments, defile our country, hate our countries, literally spit on our country week after week, but you're not allowed to show solidarity with the Jews or with Israel? It's a despicable situation.
The concerns raised about public safety and extremist rhetoric during protests are indeed important. However, resorting to mass deportations of Muslims from London is not a viable solution. Such measures would unjustly punish millions of innocent, law-abiding citizens for the actions of a small minority. To effectively tackle extremism, we need targeted law enforcement and community engagement, rather than broad actions that further alienate and divide society. Deporting Muslims as a group would not only violate human rights, but also overlook the complexities of the issue, necessitating a more thoughtful and inclusive approach.
And it's come about because of a generational cowardice by politicians of all parties and by the Metropolitan Police and others. I think it's appalling, because I know one thing for sure, Julia. The people who hate the Israelis, the people who hate the Jews, the people who we're watching at the moment marching through central London, they hate Britain as much as they hate Israel. It's just that Britain is first. We're all going to be next. So I'd say stand up in whichever way you can. And if you're an usher in a theatre, well, do your darn job. It's what you're employed for. But the idea that we have to keep giving in, and that this society, of all societies, Julia, we used to be a resilient society in Britain. The country we were brought up in, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, were resilient people. We don't have to show that much resilience these days. We just need to show a bit of backbone. Where is it, Britain? Where have you gone?
The sentiment surrounding the perceived failure of society to confront hatred towards Israel and the Jewish community is certainly concerning. However, suggesting that this reflects a broader failure that justifies harsh measures, such as deportations, oversimplifies the issue. It's crucial to recognize that the vast majority of Muslims in Britain are not aligned with extremist views and contribute positively to society. Resilience and backbone do not mean punishing innocent individuals for the actions of a few. Instead, we should focus on fostering dialogue, promoting understanding, and addressing the root causes of hate, which is a far more effective and just approach than resorting to mass deportations that would only further divide our communities.
Local MP never discussed it, won't go on the record, won't do anything. This happens again and again. The authorities are afraid. Why are they afraid? What are they afraid of?
Oh, they're afraid of Muslims. They're afraid of Muslim extremists. They're afraid of the Muslims taking to the streets and vastly outnumbering the police, which has happened on occasion after occasion. That's what happened. Then
shouldn't moderate Muslims who didn't want to come and live in this country or were born in this country, who don't share those values, but I like to think the majority don't. Shouldn't we all be in the streets and say, that's it, we will not put up with this anymore?
Well, I'm afraid what you call the moderate Muslims are notable by their absence, certainly notable in condemning their co-religionists when they call for jihad and much more. So I don't have any particular faith in that particular corner of society. But I do wonder, as I say, what has happened to everybody else. Last week, we had a Conservative MP stepping down because he said there are too many threats to his life and he just doesn't feel safe being in politics. And all these nincompoops in the Conservative Party and the other parties sort of said, oh, that's sad that that's happened. No, it's not sad. It's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage. And the police, I mean, last night in London, outside the theatre I was meant to speak at, a group of Islamists paraded up and down the street screaming through megaphones abuse at me. I don't care, but I think the Metropolitan Police ought to care. Yes. And also, let's never forget, Julia, we are all being played in Britain. We are all being played. People like the ones you're watching at the moment, they wouldn't reciprocate and give us our rights to freedom of speech if they had the upper hand. Not a bit of it. These people would subjugate everybody, but they're trying everything they can now. They're pushing, as people like them always do, and I would like to see Britain to push back. I think it's high time we made it clear that we're not going to be pushed around endlessly. You know what? We have holy places as well. One of them is our war memorials, which are trampled upon week after week. You know what? I've heard enough of Islam's holy places. I've heard enough of Islam's feelings and the sensitive feelings of Muslims that dictate which films can be seen and which books can be written. Well, you know what? We're not very sensitive. I'm not very sensitive, but actually I do have feelings as well, and my society has feelings, and we don't like trampled.
Concerns about the authorities' reluctance to confront extremist behavior are certainly troubling. However, the idea that moderate Muslims should be compelled to demonstrate against these actions overlooks the complex realities of community dynamics. Many Muslims do condemn extremist behavior, but they may not always do so publicly due to fear of backlash or being unfairly targeted themselves. It's crucial to recognize that generalizing about an entire faith based on the actions of a few undermines the principles of a tolerant society. The focus should be on fostering constructive dialogue, ensuring public safety, and addressing extremism through targeted efforts rather than scapegoating an entire community. Instead of demanding mass protests from moderate Muslims, society should work towards creating an environment where all voices can speak out against hate and violence without fear.
We have had 2 decades and more of whining from members of the Muslim community about their sacred places and sacred ideas. We have learned that you can't write novels if it offends any Muslim. You can't draw a cartoon if it offends any Muslim. You can't publish a book or make a speech if it offends any Muslim. Okay, we've had decades of this now. Some of us are completely bored of it and think that in any case it was a con trick all along. Here's the thing. Okay, here's the deal. We have sacred places too. We have sacred places too. One of them is the cenotaph. One is Remembrance Day. One is when we remember the fallen of 2 world wars. Those are our sacred places. And you think you can trample on them? You think you can prod us and insult us by marching on those days with your hate and your anti-Semitism and your anti-British sentiment? No. No, okay. We played fair, and they're not. The people doing the Million Man March are not playing fair at all. And the British public can see it. And I have said for a long time, if the British police will not protect the British public, if the British police will not protect, then it is up to somebody else. And it looks to me very much like the British public have realised that the Met Police and others recognise, and one of them said this on camera last week, that they're outnumbered at the anti-Israel protests. They're outnumbered. They don't know what to do, Julia. They're scared. They're terrified. Some of them, you can see it in the faces of the older cops, are pissed as hell that they are having to put up with this as young thugs scream insults in their face and taunt them. They don't look like they're enjoying this one bit. But here's the thing. If the Met don't look after the public and our monuments and sacred places, then it falls to the public to do so. And they might include people that you and I would not like, Julia. But this is what happens when law and order breaks down. This is what happens when the police will not police. This is what happens when the police allow people to call for the murder of people on British streets if they happen to be Muslim people doing the chanting, and would be round at your house in a nanosecond if you happened to be an autistic girl, for instance, who had said that a particular lesbian-looking cop looked like their lesbian nana. You'd get 9 people coming out to your house and hauling you out if you were that autistic girl. But you can be a big bearded jihadi calling for jihad and the massacre of Jews anywhere in the UK, and you're fine. Well, lots of people have noticed that, and we do not like it.
While the concerns about safety and public order are valid, the idea of deporting Muslims as a solution to these issues is misguided and counterproductive. Such actions would only serve to further alienate and stigmatize a community that includes many who are peaceful and law-abiding. Instead of resorting to drastic measures like deportation, it's crucial to focus on strengthening community ties and ensuring that law enforcement applies the same standards to all individuals, regardless of their background. Promoting dialogue and cooperation between different communities can help address grievances without escalating tensions. Fostering an inclusive society is essential to combating extremism and creating a safe environment for everyone. Blanket actions against a particular group only sow division and can lead to greater unrest, undermining the very values of freedom and tolerance that the UK stands for. The proposals from Douglas Murray and Tommy Robinson for the emergency deportation of Muslims from London are not only unjust but also dangerously simplistic, threatening to undermine the rich diversity and social fabric of our society. Instead of punishing millions of innocent, law-abiding citizens for the actions of a few extremists, we should focus on fostering dialogue and understanding to tackle the real challenges of extremism. The vast majority of Muslims contribute positively to our communities and should not be scapegoated for the actions of a small minority. Instead of resorting to divisive measures like mass deportation, we must work towards creating an inclusive environment where all voices can unite against hatred and violence. Promoting cooperation and community ties is essential for ensuring safety and public order, ultimately upholding the values of tolerance and freedom that define our society.